Hi, thank you all for being here. We are now almost at the end of our exhibition. Tomorrow is the last day. If some of you have come for the first time, then I would recommend coming back tomorrow because there are many sound components and also video that we've had to switch off for this conversation. So over the past 3 months, the space of the gallery has also been changing. And people who've come back again and again would notice that this landfill that's being created in the center of the gallery has grown to what it is now. So for us, every exhibition that we do gives us an opportunity to have conversations around varied ideas and subjects. This exhibition, which is titled Waste Archives as Landscapes by Navjot Altaf, has given us the chance to focus not only on waste and its afterlife, but also many of the interconnected realities and the current geopolitics that shape our world. So I think central to this exhibition are complex histories of movement and displacement. For instance, if we were to map the origins of many things around us, including waste, plants, crops, and cultures of food and many other things, the cartography would probably span the world, involving stories of trade, migration, and imperialism. So here we've really staged the exhibition also in dialogue with the museum's own colonial past and collection histories. In fact, Navjot has also incorporated the baobab tree in the museum's garden in a work there and its journey from Africa. Um, so most of you are already familiar with Navjot and her practice, but just to give you a brief overview, Navjot Altaf graduated from the JJ School of Art. She has evolved a unique practice shaped by the diverse worlds that she straddles. The rural cultures in central India, where she has based her work since the 1990s, and Mumbai, the city where she lives. In 1997, Navjot co-founded DIA, DIAA, that is, Dialogue Interactive Artists Association. It's an artist-run organization in Bastar in Chhattisgarh. Her collaborative work with indigenous communities has informed her own practice to bring forth local and regional perspectives within larger sort of discourses of social and ecological crisis. Her work has been quite multidisciplinary and has engaged multi mediums from painting, sculpture, photography, video, and installation. Many of her works develop through collaborations and include a revisitation of art, art history, film history, cultural theories, literature, and cultural discourses. So, today, in the course of our conversation, we hope to learn some of the research, the processes, and the thematics behind the works that are presented here. So, thank you so much, Navjot. It's
Thank you,
really
Puja.
been wonderful.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know,
you.
so we can.
And thank you everyone who's made an effort to come. Thank you.
Yes. So we'll get into it. So this is the first time that landfills and waste have featured in this way in your work. I know you've been looking at it for a long time. So what drew you to visiting and looking closer at landfills and dump sites? If you can speak a little bit about both places. Yeah.
Um, I see it as a continuation of my earlier projects, right from how perfection can be to soul, breath, wind, and specifically soul, breath, wind, and cognitive processes. And so this was, it was very shocking for me to see electronic waste, not that it was not there in Bombay and I didn't see, because I was also very closely following up when the Bandra Kurla complex came up, which came up on the 600 acres of riverbed. So from that time, I've been actually looking at it. But when it comes to when I decided to look at, or when it sort of took me to these places, was when I first encountered in Bastar. I was going with my friends who were taking me to Madanpur, where a coal block which was allotted for coal mining was, the government had to stop that because that would have, in a way, close the migratory path for the elephants. So, because when development was happening in Jharkhand, the elephants sort of, they migrated to Chhattisgarh. So that happened. So while I was going, so there's a very beautiful village close to Lemru. I think it's Lemru, and this elephant reserve is named after that. So we were going to that and also going to Madanpur. I wanted to understand the ecological resistance that village had carried on, and then they succeeded in that, and how the neighboring villages were also protesting for closing down the mining in that area. And so while we were, so my colleague said, this is the area where you wanted to see animals. So we went to, so we were in a beautiful forest. It was not a village, still we had to reach there, and it was in a forest where we stood and looked down. It was like a slope like this, and there was a stream flowing there, and that's where elephants normally could be seen because they come to bathe and drink water. So, and we were lucky to see one little baby elephant and one maybe mother. And, but to my surprise, as you know, when one is looking at one thing, it's not only looking at one thing, you're also looking around. So as I turned my head, I saw a huge pond as big as maybe this room or maybe broader, full of electronic goods. And so that was also when I really felt that what are we really caring for? So, this kind of things come to mind, and this phrase, the junkyard of the Eden, because we imagine Eden to be a pristine, untouched nature, and so, and earlier ash dikes have already sort of, they're part of my soul breath wind, because I did a very deep research in Bastar about coal mining, people getting affected by coal mining. So this was now, so this is how I got more interested, and I started going to more and more places, not in Bastar so much, it was not there, but this is the tendency when somebody sees ki, oh, it is already dumped, somebody else will also dump, and this is all illegal. There are no permissions and all in the villages and in those, isolated places, which are far away from, let's say, Korba. This was the Korba area. So after that, I started, when I came back to Bombay, then I started looking at, then, when you get interested in something or engage, then automatically you start looking at that. And that's what was happening with me. But then that's a Kanjur Marg I found out, Deonar. And then I went to, I didn't know about Ahmedabad's Pirana or Citizen Nagar. Citizen Nagar, though I had a kind of memory of 2002 when I went. And that time, people from Naroda Patia who were displaced were given a place built by the Muslim organization from Kerala for them, which was a huge ground and no trees, nothing. But they got some rooms. That is how that space was. But years later, when I visited, and I also have a principle that when I make work with people, I go and show to them. Now, so that they can see what I have done with the material. So that was many years back, but then later, after 10, 15 years, when I went again, and I saw, and every time I went, I met them. So when I went, the dump had just started, and their homes were still far. So, but over the years, now it has become like a huge, like you see in my works also, which appear to be mountains or hills, but they are not. They're all waste dumps. And then, yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about, the local dynamics? Because accessing these sites also has its own systems, and like what are the different stories or the local dynamics and politics of even accessing the sites, or what you learned about it, that lesser known stories about that.
Our governments and our municipalities have become very smart. They have, if you go to these places, they are heavily guarded.
Guarded, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
accessing these places
Yeah.
is like navigating, very complex system of bureaucracy. That means getting permissions from the municipal offices, and also and also talking to or bribing or whatever. There are corporate contracted security. So they are everywhere, and which we saw even during COVID, when this whole sea, the what is that called? This river, the bridge which has come up now. If you see, it was all covered. Nobody could really peep in. If I came many times, with my mask and all, because it never used to be crowded, but you could not peep in. Sometimes one was lucky if it was torn because of the rains or something, and you could take a picture. So this is how it is. And then if you are able to access, then you have to acknowledge, that there is, you see the power asymmetries there.
You do.
And you also see, when you sort of, apart from the physical discomfort that one feels in these places because of the stench and all that, which leaves you with bad headache and nausea, and then itching and burning of eyes and all that. But you also confront a very stark socio-political dynamics, and um, um, uh, and the hidden truths of human and non-human living in that, at the margin of these disposable zones. So that's how, uh, going to these places it's a very complex kind of situation. It's not that simple, as we think it is, that you and now, then in Pirana, um, uh, we met, I and Komal were there. This is quite recently, about 6 months back, when I was working on. Pirana is in Ahmedabad. Pirana, in 2002, when I went to Pirana Dargah, which was run by the Hindus, and it was a Muslim dargah, but run by the Hindus for 600 years by the Patels. So this was during the riots. I met Saeed Mirza, and he was going, and so he said, come along. So I went with him. And now, so that is one area which has also now become, I've heard that there are a lot of problems there, religious, political, and all that, with our friend ruling the government. And so, so this is a Pirana landfill, which is a huge black mountain. And so I just went and sat next to one of the municipality employee there, and he was very nice. And because they were not letting us go inside, so from far only we took pictures and all. And so he said, he told us many stories of people dying, people who were working and who were employed by the municipality, them getting respiratory problems and asthma, and many have died. And he said very clearly, people like me can survive here because I have better immunity. I eat eggs, I take care of myself because I need the job, I have children. So so when you start looking at from that point of view, sometimes how people have to take up the job with a municipality job, he will get pension and all, but his health also is very important. And then he also told us about the permission part. He says, we don't give permission. So I'm sorry, we cannot give you. Whatever you can take some pictures from here, you take. So we respected his, because he was on duty, so we respected that and we didn't go. But though Komal tried to go inside, Komal is my studio who helps me with many things. So she managed to go to some area, but it was not possible to go closer to that. So, yeah, and then the dog stories, you know. This film called Instinct is based on a real story, which was told by a Muslim family. Muslims don't keep dogs. But, you know, this is also when they came to that area, they told me, it was so barren that sometimes they didn't know who will come because this was soon after the riots. They were always very scared of, you know, they can be attacked. And that was happening also there in Ahmedabad. So they kept a dog, and they told me the story of this dog who went. He says, now to our children also go up, and they come back with scratch. Their skin diseases never go. It's become that bad. So they told me the story about dog. You know, they could hear the, cry of the dog, alarming cry, but they didn't really think that, they thought that maybe dogs do that, you know, from time to time. But you know, when we think of non-human, like in today's time, I feel like, I really feel that, you know, when the scientists are saying that, is there a turning point? How can we deal with this problem? So there's no question of turning. There's no turning point now because we've crossed all kinds of limits, you know, of keeping our environment under control. Perhaps I really feel, and then also, you know, a lot of, let's say, Health Foster says, think of alternative ways or think of what has not yet come. So I also feel perhaps we need to also think what has been here, you know, and that is like, in this case, I've taken this Maori tribes, which is New Zealand tribe. You know, when the Kamua Kamuri, that means look back to walk, to move forward. So maybe we need to look back how to, it's not that, you know, that the metals were not extracted from the earth. In fact, the very first in India, you know, person who made iron was an Adivasi. But what I understand is, and when I'm staying there now also, if you go to their home, there's no iron gate or anything there. It is the scale. So what we have done is, it's the scale. So in this exhibition also, I have two sounds. One is of the plane and one is of the Buddhist prayer bowl. Both are made of alloys. So Buddhist prayer bowl is made of 7 alloys, and the plane is also made of 4-5 alloys. So, but you know, the function of both, one is for spiritual and one for commercial. So that's the kind of dilemma, you know, we are passing through, and which is a reality. And yeah.
I find that in a lot of your work, especially all the work presented here, it's not really about devising a signature style of painting, say, right? You're using already existing ways of depicting things like realism or whatever. So in a way, you're also like using quotation, like you're citing different disciplines, right? From, if you look at these paintings, in a way, it's like a postmodern approach of quoting from different disciplines and genres of painting as well. So, for here, instance, there is from botanical drawing to the history of landscape painting. There are many things that we can sort of weave into the way that. So, I just wanted to ask you about that. Like, what are your references and how do you think of using, like, what is it that you think of in using these multiple disciplines?
You know, when I thought of doing landscapes, because Waste archives as landscape, I mean, of course, these are also seascapes, you know, but things are lying on first they are thrown on the ground and then they start floating and all that, but sometimes they are dumped also. Like there is a story I have the fragments of that story I have. There's a Kian ship. There was a Kian ship, a ship called, there was a ship called Kian, cargo ship, which left Philadelphia in the 80s, and it had all the industrial waste, and it went to many places, started with Bahama, thinking that they'll be able to fool other countries by saying that this is fertilizer and all that. But then in the 80s, people were quite conscious of, what is fertilizer and what is waste. So it stayed in the water for almost 8 years. It changed its name, it went to many places, a lot happened. So to cut the story short, they finally, they managed to sort of dump it 5 ton or somewhere, and then in some countries, and rest of the 10 tons or whatever it was, and was dumped in the Indian Ocean near near Singapore and between Sri Lanka and so America has been, they have been cheaters for centuries, and now, I mean, everybody will agree with me that what is happening now, they've been doing it for ever. So that part of so every little bit fragment of that ship is there in all my paintings. Basically, it is, I'll tell why I have brought it, but my approach to painting, my approach to landscape is informed by feminist ethics and philosophies of care and relationality, because this reminds us that the livable future cannot be built on extraction, but by care. So I'm really, I think that's how I want to think about, and that's how I practice my life. From the beginning of my life, I have practiced in a way that I feel that I believe in. So I feel that this is how I have looked at this also. So instead of looking at the landscape from, a very distanced and objective gaze, like a colonial surveying, because you know how our reclamation also started when the British used to come and, for the survey, and they'll see all the dry areas of the sea where the mangroves had dried up in summer, and they would say, we'll make something like that. They did not really went deep into, and also when they did the flower studies and all, the botanical drawings, that was, it was, for many years I thought it was only for the archival purposes, but it was meant for extraction. And then what they do is if you see those drawings, they remove it from the context. You will see the leaves separately, you'll see flowers separately, the branch and all the details are there. So when I was doing this, my works, if you see my flowers and if you see my paintings, I've not taken them out of the context. So I know in my mind, and also people can recognize also where they are from. Most of them you can see it's near the sea and all, mostly in Bombay and all. But also in Bastar, like for example, when I said I saw that, it was something like that, that this is how we could see the hill down. So instead of that, I see my work process as a form of witnessing. Because this discipline of knowledge values vulnerability and emotional labor. Emotional labor, I mean to say, कि when you go and work in the field, when you're doing your research, I may not be anthropologist, I may not be social scientist or, from academic world, but artists also have their own subjectivity and their own intellect. And so I see, and also I feel these are also very vulnerable places. And there's also a lot of emotion. It's not that you don't get affected by it. You do get emotionally affected. So this discipline of knowledge values that. That's why witnessing, and which is also a very feminist position. And also, which is the most important, is sitting with complicity. Now, sitting with the complexity is a term which means that we need, where one means actively acknowledging, first of all, sensing, and then reflecting on. That how we are also, how, to look at the personal entanglement, our own entangle with the systemic harm. And you know what harm we are talking about of, uh, you know, um, exploitation of social inequality and environmental destruction, etc. So we are also very much a part of it. So once we acknowledge that, I think it is that's important. So when people ask, so you did this for this, you did this. So you say plane should not be there. You say that ships should not be there. You say so. It is a very simplistic way of asking these kind of things. So I normally don't talk, only if I'm asked I talk. And so this is what I feel. And I'm also interested in, the environmental and human rights laws. Yeah. And basically to understand our constitutional rights to what the clean environment we should have, or we have to have, or the loopholes, the loopholes through which our state and the corporate can create this kind of disposal zones.
Can you also speak about the process of making these works? Because I know there was a lot of research and documentation of actually taking photographs, and each work is not necessarily from one side.
Yeah.
Right? You've also referred to other things. So maybe if you can speak about the process of actually making each one of, not all the works, but
yeah. No, yeah, it's very interesting. That when I got interested in that, wherever I went, even if I saw a little bit of electronic, thrown, I would take a picture of that. Or then the larger sites. Or one day I was going, it was the Ghatkopar site, that I saw such a huge pile through the trees. Quickly I took a picture. So, you become like obsessive with that, or passionate or whatever. So hundreds and thousands of pictures I took, and some I've also taken from the websites. What is the term, Komal? What is that?
what Wiki Commons?
Huh?
Wiki Commons.
No.
Creative Commons.
Creative Commons, where you have the freedom to use that. So basically, I also took from there, because now in this whole thing of the global market, if we see my TV or somebody's TV in London or New York or Singapore or wherever, they look the same. And also they are many parts are made in China and then assembled wherever, they go. So if you really see, can't make out. So, whether it's the context, is the landscape looks little different than ours. But many of the landscapes are like our own Mithi River or Mud Island. And my daughter stays in Mud Island. I go quite a lot. And if you go by road, you pass through so many. And if you go a little bit further, and not which are main areas where a lot of people come and they keep cleaning, we think, oh, a lot of work is going on and there's cleaning and all. You go 1 kilometer inside or 2 kilometers inside, and then you will start seeing not only on the beach, but inside the mangroves also. But luckily, 33%, of the Bombay land is green, even till now. But are we really taking care of? This is the kind of question comes to mind. Who are we really caring for? What are we really caring for? What's the point of redevelopment, this development, bigger building? I'm also part of it. I also get a kick out of it, when you get to stay in a more comfortable house and all that. So that's what I'm saying, that sitting with complexity, it is very important to reflect on. And maybe perhaps, so that's one thing. And then, so what I've done is that I've taken many, many pictures and then photographs, and then also downloaded, and then cut them into pieces and made collages on Photoshop, And that has been, so that has been transferred onto the paper. My artist who helps me, Gajanan, he's here today. And so he helps me transfer it on my paper that I paint on, you know. So that's how I
Then you
make.
paint over that. So it,
But it's not a photograph.
Yeah.
I never paint on photographs. This is painted on cold pressed
paper.
paper. Yeah. And and then if you see, apart from the fragment of the Chianti ship, I also have another form, and that form is of the roots. Like I have made this structure here to symbolize, which symbolizes the transportation routes, you know, and some are closed, some are open. You know, some countries follow you know, the treaties, you know, whatever they sign. Some countries don't follow, and usme America to hai hi. So this is America, from where these things are falling. So I also see it like this installation of mine. You know, when we were younger, there was a poem we used to have, I think in first, second standard or something. Boond boond pani se gehra khadda bhar jata hai. You know, valuing, you value water. But now I say ek ek tukde se pura pahad ban jata. And this is how it is. And it is also like this, you know, there's a sensor here. Only when you come here, the things start falling. Because it is also it's also again a kind of metaphorically you're saying you're also participating in that, you know, even if it is this much. We say मैंने तो थोड़ा ही फेंका है, but वो थोड़ा थोड़ा करके इतना हो जाता है. So so that's how so these works are made, and yeah.
So
And then also, sorry, about the flowers. Flowers also, even though I have employed that method of painting like colonial archaeological drawings, but my interest is in not to take them out from the context, one. And then also that I'm very interested in, I'm very influenced by a fantastic anthropologist called Gregory Betson, and he talks about patterns which connect, and he talks about mental ecology and all that. And I'm very, I've learned a lot from those readings also. And so I want, the idea is that, you know, you invite and engage the viewer to look at the patterns which connect. Now, the patterns here in this case are, you know, the Chianti is one story, and this is another. And so you start sort of seeing everything is, whether it is the root or the Chian, they are of exploitative nature. You know, so
yeah, so actually it's interesting you spoke about you know, the metaphors that you use, and also things like this, the pipes you've used before also in your works.
Yeah.
This also becomes like a grade or matrix right there, means something else. So can you also speak about, there is this element of abstraction a lot in your work. You know, some of these also like are so zoomed in, then you have to like figure what it is. And even your use of, say, statistical data analysis, you know, that the one that's behind the baobab, for instance. So of course they are sort of these data inputs and things, but so can you speak a little more about that, this language of
Abstraction.
abstraction in art and this,
Yeah.
because in your work it sort of becomes something else.
I'm glad you're asking me this question because I've answered so many times. I don't know whether um, uh, what people make out of it. See, very recently I found a term. So, you know, the use of all that, the statistical analysis or data points and all that that I use in my work, I see it as politicality of abstraction, you know. And I don't that means that so it is to map the structural violence of the Anthropocene. And it is meant, I mean, very deliberately used for that purpose, and not as pure aesthetics, autonomy, abstraction as pure autonomy or something like aesthetic autonomy. So that's the difference. But I don't see if there is how abstraction is read, but I also, why I use these also, because I feel that how intelligently science has used these signs, which if you don't read, you'd never come to know what they are saying. So, it's like, so, and if supposing as an artist I start showing images, now for many, many years I have not been painting human beings, because I feel that human beings that I imagined, or somebody else's life I am representing, it's better people self-represent themselves. So self-representation is possible in the videos, where people are speaking themselves, and that's one. So abstraction is not in my work as a pure abstraction, but as an artist, I thoroughly enjoy looking at those works. And I also maybe subconsciously use, because in every work there is part of abstraction in that, because you're not making a picture like that. So there are metaphors, there are references, there are so many things in your work which makes it a work of art. So things like
Same with
these
us,
also,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's interesting, many visitors have actually asked us about this paradox that the exhibition is about waste and e-waste and toxic waste. But at the same time, there is so much of this in the exhibition that, so they, like, the question was, how is this acquired and what will be the afterlife of the materials in this exhibition? Will they be repurposed for another installation or recycled, or what is the plan for this?
Um, at the moment, I will, because I studied on it, I don't want to discard it, because I would really wish that somebody puts it up somewhere and it is in some institution, or it is in some institution. Doesn't mean only, it can be museum, it can be galleries, and it can be other institutions, And and also here, if you see, all these material that I have, first of all, I personally went to many shops and I collected the smallest. I wanted to use, because in my paintings you have all kinds of motherboards and all kinds of electronic forms. But here I wanted to use, I am also making a point that it's not big things or anything. Sometimes we are not even aware the smallest of component. And if you see, we have even this much component, which is half an inch or can contaminate the soil and the water. And so my worry is also, that how we are, when we throw these things and all that, we are actually permanently destroying the land's, capacity to self-sustain, because nature is known to be self-sustaining, because forest में कौन पानी देता है? So they self-sustain. So that is only when we don't intervene so much that we destroy that. So for some time, I will like to store it carefully. And if they are not opened to remove the rare material from that, then they remain all right. And in case they start, and they don't ooze out the toxic, the liquid like the batteries do with the lithium inside. So they are different. The electronic is slightly different. So they don't ooze out. So if I properly pack it in, it's like my other installations, I keep, and they travel and they go somewhere else. And because artist always wishes that the work should go to a place where more people can see. That's why I've never been. A lot of people have asked me that I talk about collaboration, and and you still show in galleries and museums and all. I feel, why not? Because galleries and museums also, first of all, they're also changing, and they also, that's a space where people can see it for some time. So shows like these for 3 months helps. you know, and then this place is also very special because all kinds of people come here. It's not only art lovers or anything. So I feel that I'm an artist. This is my space. And but I also do the site specific works, but when I do site specific works, they're very relative to people's cultural experiences. When I make works with them, for them, you know, and there I feel how perhaps the viewer has to see it differently. Then the place of the site of production itself becomes very important as the outcome. Sometimes outcome is also not that important, because when you begin working in collaboration with people, and especially from whom you are from whom you have learned, you know, like my hand pump sites and all that, it's not necessary that the work will come out as I, as an artist, as an urban artist, or you know, I feel maybe if I have to design something, it will be very different. On my own, if I have to decide, if I have to do an architectural sculpture, then maybe it will be very different. But when you are doing it with people, then you have to be sensitive to their sensibilities. And that's why I say they're always in relation to, they're always, you know, I keep in mind that they're relative to people's cultural experiences that we have learnt from.
Right.
And reciprocity, you know, so where is the reciprocity from me? You know, what do I give back to them? We don't give money, or we don't give anything, and scholarships are also sometimes for short periods and all that. So reciprocity, I see that it's like my time and my commitment to listen to them, and what I want to learn, and that's how I see myself. I can give my time. So my, you know, and but at the same time, going to Bastar, for me, it's been like negotiating, you know, the uncertainties, because I go from a place where I'm already used to and I'm more secured. I go there. This is many years back I'm talking about, and it's still continuing. Uncertainties the privileges of being an urban artist. You know, so constantly one has to negotiate with or critically or sort of be critically reflexive, you know, reflective. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, since you've been engaging with these rural communities, there is obviously this power dynamics. You know, you've collaborated so much with many rural indigenous communities in Chhattisgarh. So how do you navigate that? Because in any collaboration, that is very apparent, right? That comes up in different ways.
You know, actually, I want to say this, that after working there for so many years in collaboration with people, the questions now which have come up, because a lot of PhD students here, there, they keep writing to you, and then they have new questions and all that. And also for us, for me and my colleagues in Bastar, Rajkumar and all, it's not just working with communities, we are also thinking, and we are also discussing between us. There are frustrations, there are disappointments, and I keep talking to Komal all the time, you know, was I this, was I that, you know, with them. And so that, apart from that, the kind of questions which come up is what kind of aesthetics, which I also like to now understand, because you have to go beyond just being there and you know, all that. So what kind of aesthetics which evolved from working in collaboration with people, and what kind of politics also evolve, sort of is embedded in this kind of aesthetics. So which I feel the aesthetics which has evolved from this kind of this method, I mean this collaborative work with the community, is aesthetics which is informed by conversation. Because I really believe the dialogical process, you know, I think the dialogue begins only when you start listening to people. You know, it's not that I have so much time. I always feel this short of time in my life, you know, because perhaps I'm there, I'm here and all that. So I get much less time to do art production like this has taken me 3.5, 4 years. And so some people have done many more projects and all, but this is how I work. And and the kind of politics embedded in that is a politics of politics of inclusivity. And politics of, I mean, the inclusivity is possible only, if you initiate a system, I mean, system within a system. Na? When we are also working, that also becomes a chota sa system. In that, you sort of initiate a system of equal aesthetic rights. That's why when you work with the people, you are making artworks with people, for the people, and it is relative to people's cultural experiences. That's where you have to have this kind of understanding. And that's why I feel that site of production, in this case, if somebody has to understand this kind of work, it is site of, because there it's not that work is over and then you are talking to people. Here, apart from me, I'm trained for this, as an artist or something, to speak about my work and all that. But people who are there left behind, who are in Bastar, who is speaking, who are they speaking? It's at that time. That is where you should see whether I dominate or they dominate or nobody dominates, or what you decide. We have a design, but in the end something else happens. So are we disappointed? No, not really, because there, first of all, also it is the agency. It is not for sale. It is for the purpose of utilization. But utilization also cannot be. So when we make drainages and all, the masons who works, they say, madam, ये कल इसमें कचरा आने वाला है. I said, नहीं, इस वक्त हमारे लिए ये आर्ट है, ये लाइन है, देखो यहाँ से देखो, वहाँ से देखो. So that time when we are making, and the first photograph of our work is so beautiful, and then, but the way we made those works, even till date, people are using. But unfortunately, two of them, like the fate of an artwork in public spaces, two of our works have been, one has gone in road widening, another attacked by the BJP, RSS people. They said, अभी तो हैंड पंप को यूज़ नहीं कर रहा है, अभी तो वो टैप आ गए. But हैंड पंप was working and tap has timing, from 12 से 4 या ऐसे करके. तो people were using, but they broke and they said, हम यहाँ पे अपना सेंटर बनाएंगे, यूथ क्लब बनाएंगे. We could not even go to municipality. We didn't even have that much time to go to municipality because those sites were allotted to us by the municipality. At least हमें right तो दो to protect our work. Rato rat, they brought one small bulldozer and they broke it. So that's the kind of situation we are facing there,
Then, speaking about collaboration, there's so much else also that happens in your work. For instance, in the video that is there.
That's very important, yeah.
There's, I think, with theatre, with Buddhan theatre, Ganesh Devis, and many other sort of groups that are also working towards this kind of social justice awareness, and theatre workers, or for instance, engineers. There's a lot of collaboration, and even to make this thing, there was so many different people involved. So, can you speak a little bit about that, like in the making of the work, thinking of the work also, especially in the video, it's quite apparent because even in the thinking of it, I guess it changes with this collaboration.
It's a very interesting question, and supposing I refer to my notes more, please bear with me, because I really want to speak about it because I'm asked about it most of the time. So when one collaborates with the other artists or different artists, right from the beginning, there is a kind of understanding that we are creating a shared testimony. Why shared testimony? Because by that time, one has mutually sort of, agreed that we will be working together and all that. And there is on what one is working on. So so at that time, so when you decide about that you are going to create a shared testimony, the process and the artwork becomes a collective act of bearing witness. Bearing witness to what? To a specific reality. If we are talking about here marginalized culture, so that's the reality, and history or crisis of our research and all that. And so the shared testimony, I feel, is an ethical stance that I take, and which also acknowledges that the complex truths and dealing with the marginalized histories cannot be captured by a single voice. So it takes multiple witnesses to strengthen that testimony. So when we have here in this film Chalbal, which I first read a book edited by Pramod Ranjan, Maheshasur Ek Jannayak in Hindi, and then it is translated Maheshasur as a hero. What was very interesting about that book was that there were number of writings by Dalit writers, intellectuals, researchers, and all that, and also by non, Dalits. So, I read that book, and I happened to go to. I was introduced to Dakshin Chara, who is from Buddhan Theatre. He started Buddhan Theatre. He's older than other actors that I've worked with. And so I was introduced to him by Devi Ganesh, Ganesh Devi, who is a literary critic, and many things he is actually. And he introduced me to him, and I saw his films, and I also came to know that how all of them now are educated, and they are making films, and they are into theater, and they do street theater. And during COVID time also, I saw a number of they were very active on their website. So that's how so when I met them, and I shared my idea, my concept of making a film on this, because I was talking about this, and I was looking at things in a larger context, because I also have understood one thing, which is actually my experience of being in Bastar, and observing what happens to landfill, what happens to land there. First of all, it is taken, and then miles and miles and miles have been acquired, which we should not. You will know, Mimi and Naren, that when we go to Vadkhal now and we see Jindal, all those, both the row, while going to Kihim or Aliba, were fields. Yeah. Today they are where you have ash dyke. Every time I go, no matter who is with me, whether driver or anyone, I tell the story to them कि ये पहले fields थे, हम यहाँ रुकते थे, देखिए क्या हो गया. Miles and miles they have acquired. So similarly there also, miles and miles and miles, and like I was saying, the soil is sort of, the capacity of soil to correct itself is not left any longer. So where were we?
Talk about collaboration and.
Sorry. So then I also felt that though when people lose their land there, they are displaced. They are the ones who come to the cities for, as landless laborers and all, with some compensation from the government, 10 lakhs for 2 acres, 10 acres, whatever. But 10 lakhs finishes in no time. And they also, when they get so much money, they want to buy scooter, they want to buy TV, and which is a reality of life, but it gets over. But when you have land of 3 acres, 4 acres, and if there's a family of 7, 8, they survive. With the government ration and all that, they survive pretty okay. They grow their own vegetables and all. Now they have nothing, they are landless labor. So what I feel like, these are the people who are sort of, displaced from there are the ones who come and stay at the peripheries of our cities, further marginalized. So this marginalization का issue है ना, ये बहुत complex है, so it's like, you can go on, and then there are evidences of that. So, yeah. And then what had you asked me, which I wanted to also
address?
Yeah, I wanted to address that. So working with these people. So it's a Buddhan theater. So it was very interesting. So when I first met the Buddhan theater people, and I shared my short concept I had written, and this idea of making the film was from the time when JNU had that Maheshasur Divas problems, the political problems. From that time, I was thinking about this whole marginalized cultures and Dalits and Adivasis and all that. And then in between, our Prime Minister also said Vanvasi. One khatam ho gaye, to wo bhi khatam ho gaye. But when we say when we say Adivasi, we still feel that, Adivasi. But one Vasi, one ही नहीं है, तो Vasi भी नहीं है ना. तो पूरी उनकी identity खत्म कर दो. So there are local people who are making plays and all on issues like these there, and whom we invite to Diya. I know it's out of the context I'm talking about, but then it is how one sort of is learning from people. It's not only that we make art and all that. There are people in villages who are who are doing theater, and who are, especially this mirror theater, who did Lal Pani, then Koila and Vanvasi, Adivasi. So these are the people, when we have our seminars, we invite them, the entire village comes to watch. The village, our area where we stay, Kondagaon, has at least 1,000 people. At least 500 people turn up for that evening. So that is how also the relationship is built. Apart from listening to this, they also see what it is about their lives. It is about them only. So with Buddhan theatre people, when they read my concept, and they said, can we develop the script together? And we have many points to bring in. The whole history of, this, when you see the film, you will see they're talking about Ahmedabad. I didn't know those stories about Ahmedabad ka naam pehle kya tha, Adivasi. Then the government doesn't want Ahmedabad, doesn't want Ashabal. They don't mind Karunavati, one Hindu king who came for a short time to rule. So that kind of politics, and also he said, they talk about how this culture of urbanization is vibrant, and then many other stories they brought in, which I was not. So I said, of course. So, that's how what was very interesting was that they said, you come to Ahmedabad because they belong to, Chhara community belongs to a tribe which was classified by the British as criminals. So, but the after effect of that also stays in the society. Even though the law has been lifted by Indian government in 1947, but उसका effect है. अरे वो तो चारा कम्युनिटी का है. So they talk about 2002 में कैसे चारा कम्युनिटी को exploit करने की कोशिश की गई थी. So so we developed that. We sat for about a week and 10 days, and luckily we got a room in Conflictorium Museum. There is a small Conflictorium Museum in Ahmedabad, where you have history of people who have fought for the country and all. So you have these cutouts of Nehru, Gandhi, Ambedkar. Conflictorium.
Very bold
It's like Parsis are great, it's a Parsi bungalow, and they gave it, to convert it into a museum, which is wonderful. And then there are also contemporary exhibitions sometimes, curators have, of artists. There's a top part is that they have a library. So we got a room to sit there and sort of develop our. So that was very interesting, that some visitors would come, white people, all kinds of people, the foreigners came. They would put that button, and suddenly you'll hear Gandhi, not Gandhi so much, Gandhi also, Nehru, then Ambedkar. So Ambedkar I was very much interested in because so I took that part of, when he talked to Gandhi about, it was a BBC interview, when he talked to Gandhi saying that, after the partition, that he let the Dalits decide for first four, you must be aware of that, that who do we really want to represent in the main government? They don't know who to, and our representatives are only one or two in the government. Gandhi didn't agree. So that I've taken, and then the Nehru's speech on, the day we got our freedom. And so that one could hear, not that one could hear, but the sound was there. So that's how I feel that it's also overlaid, where you are, what you are doing, with whom you are doing. These bachas are very enthusiastic. And in my films, I've never had dialogues. My works are quite conceptual in that sense. And there's so much of dialogue. I'm so worried. I was so worried about that, how will the film be seen? Then I told myself that it is, at one level I say that, it is shared testimony, and I follow that process. Then why should I worry about? And then why should I worry about the failure also? After all, any process is not only uh, um, success, but I think it is worked in my mind. So this one, they're speaking Chara language. And then I saw two performances in Bombay on two different political events. One was by Nisha Ahmed from Bangalore. She's wonderful. And at Kemold to raise funds for Tista Settlebat. I worked with Tista earlier, so I had, I saw that and I said, oh, I wanted to bring in another minority minority voice to speak about Muslim, and I didn't know how to bring in. So there she was, so through Mapla Ramayan, which also is sung by the Muslims not Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, yeah. So that, and then I saw Sanjukta, where I was invited to give a talk on the occasion of 50 years of women's movement last year or 2 years back. And I saw her, performance there, and I asked her, "Ki I'm making this film, whether she'll consider," which I shot much later after 1 year or so. She said she'll be, and so I sent her also the script. By that time, our script was ready and the shoot, we had not shot it yet. So she read it and she says, my Mahabharat story of Gandhari will resonate with, and in that also she talks about how Naga tribe was displaced to build Indraprastha there. She's seeing herself as a marginalized within that ruling class, you know. And Nisha is talking about how, they are very much part of this land, but it's just that 600 years back, they got converted, so what? So if they got converted into Islam, that doesn't mean that they are outsiders. So she brings in that. So it worked good for me, because everybody is talking about Ramayana and Mahabharata, but here Ramayana and Mahabharata is brought in from a very different perspective. So that part I was saying you must see. So she sings in Malayalam, and there's English, Hindi, and Chara language. So this is the result of the shared testimony, the approach to.
Perhaps we can open it up to questions from the audience.
If there's any question, I'll be.
Sorry, I'm curious about what happened to the dog.
To?
The dog.
He died.
The cry was like.
Cry was that because he had eaten, that's why this little video is 3 seconds, 3-minute animation video. That's what is about his life, that he eats some meat. If you see Deonar or all these places, most of the, also the butchery where they cut meat also is shifted normally outside. You know, we used to have it in Bandra and then it went to Deonar. So a lot of meat is thrown. Now, the dogs, no matter how pampered they are, like my dog, when I took him out for the walk, Snoopy, it would go to the dirtiest possible place. And I used to say, Khana khakar aaye ho, everything is fine, but you're going to the dirtiest place, huh? No, they're very keen to smell, na? Yeah.
So this dog that
No, he died. That's what they told me in the story. And how we are not listening to the non-human. You know, this symptom that he was crying and they thought that ki kutte rote rehte hain, you know. And so the dog died. Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. It was very nice listening to you. I am very taken by the flowers that you have painted here. And I was wondering, I know you did tell us a little bit about, you wanted to present them in the context and not take them away from the context that they are found. So how, I mean, did you actually find them in these spaces that you went to and that's how you sourced the flowers, or how did you choose these particular
No, I chose these.
juxtapose them as well?
No, that was, I thought that made a point that how the natural waste, you know, becomes the manure for the trees and plants, and how the waste like this contaminates or destroys the capacity of the land. So that's why. So it's all interrelated in a way. That and the flowers, these 5, 6 flowers I chose because of, I take photographs of, if hundreds and thousands of photographs I take of flowers. I'm so fond of flowers. Wherever abhi मैं जा रही थी, I saw the purple one, and I have a cousin who lives in Uttarakhand, and every morning at 6 o'clock he takes up the beautiful image of sunrise and sends me, and there are different colors. Now I have to send him good morning, so I thought I'll send matching flower. So if I see purple flower, immediately I should. मैंने तो अभी now my assistant is there here and I say कोमल जाओ वो फूल लेकर आ जाओ. So we have so many photographs. That's how I interact with. He's a very very dear cousin of mine, and we spent many years in Meerut together. So this is how we interact every morning. I get up at 8:30. He gets up at 5, 6 o'clock. Madman. So so my good morning is at about 9 o'clock, and his good morning is at 6:30. So but I use flowers every day. So now no matter whether it is in my garden, so I have a village house also, so there I have lot of flowers, and we do only organic gardening. We don't use, my माली keeps saying कि इसके अंदर आप अगर थोड़ा यूरिया डालेंगे फूल बड़े हो जाएंगे, ज़्यादा हो जाएंगे. I said नहीं, जितने हैं उतने ही काफ़ी, उतने भी मैं फ़ोटो नहीं ले पाती. So because I'm not there half the time. So sweet. Now he started sending me flower ke photographs. I've told every friend of mine, please don't send me anything which is forwarded. If at all you want to send me what you have archived yourself or taken picture of, then one has interest in that. And it also encourages you to, because the question these days is asked, how do we encourage children to associate with nature? And यहाँ Adivasi children live amongst forests, and we are calling them the backward, poorest. Why are they poorest? The corporate has entered. People say, oh, you live in such isolated. They're not isolated any longer. The corporate has entered, government has entered, all kinds of things have entered, and we expect their art to be folk art, craft, where we can also bargain, which is the truth, नहीं नहीं 200 का नहीं 100 का दे दो. हमारे म्यूजियम भी करते हैं, ऐसी बात नहीं है म्यूजियम कि कट डाउन, विल इफ दे आर बाइंग मोर देन one work or something like. It's not that, but it is in a very derogatory way that is done. Exchange, any kind of exchange has that kind of possibility of reducing and increasing and all that. So I feel that why can't our education incorporate their knowledge? The children's knowledge is so fantastic when we do workshops. Our workshops are not pencil rubber wale. So like initially when I had energy, now my legs are not so strong. I can't walk through those rough areas. And we used to go to, I used to walk with them through the forest. You should see how these children are so light, you know. They know which plant can harm them and which plant cannot, what they can eat from there and not. You know, so why isn't that kind of knowledge of children, Adivasi children, be part of our education system? Na? Schools tell me there, I've done many projects with schools also, but again, this kind of project where no color, no pencil, no rubber. And we don't have time for art class. Art class is used for science class. The children are very weak. You know, they're very poor. They don't have rubber pencil, this, that. So I've done projects like Chawal Ki Kahani, and which is so related to, but through their artistic expressions, like, you know, which is oral cultures, the songs and dances, which are, or say, now we have a scholarship, Dia has a scholarship. We are making a big book on Kokoreng, which should be published now, and which is about, if you know the story of that whole ritual performance, if you know the, because we met Gond Adivasi scholars who can translate Gondi, what they sing, otherwise people don't know what they are singing. So it is there, the crow is speaking, water is speaking, boat is speaking, and all and खरगोश बात कर रहा है, तो so there so I have also by associate by you know, being with their cosmologies, what my understanding has is it deepened, you know, to understand the human existence. Actually, what we talk about in theory, we are reading, because I'm interested in nature, in environment, so I read a lot, you know, what scientists and all are talking about. They're talking about that how we need to value interdependence and interconnection. It's there. It's there, you know. And they, even today, the areas which are not affected, they are practicing. The rituals are based on that. They have a ritual where one day they call it I think it's a Haryali, and where they have one in one place food is kept and animals and human eat together. You see, that is the day also they are given from one particular, there's a festival. And then how they have ama khani, every fruit, every vegetable when it ripens, first it is offered. And it is offered because they don't want to lose out their relationship with the sacred and they don't want to forget about the reciprocity on their part. How do they reciprocate to the land? You know, this is how they do. And the relationship with land is not like the relationship in the city, which is valued according to the value of the land. This is based on various other things, you know. That is important, I feel, that, you know, I have seen very important protest which went on for 10 years in Londiguda, where Tata Motors wanted to buy 10 villages. And this entire area, they sort of were determined not to sell because the land is next to Indravati River. And all the corporate people want land next to the water because all the minerals are there. कहने को मोटा कि वो फैक्ट्री बनाएंगे, लेकिन it's also something else. I've seen rivers being diverted to their factories, you know, Jindal factory in Korba, in Raigad. And you know what happens to the, I've seen ash dike, you know, flowing in the rivers, and where the animals are dying, where people are getting all the skin and this, like this. Women are not becoming conceiving, cows are not conceiving, they're getting cancer, cows getting cancer. So this is the after effect of the waste, you know. So it's not, waste is not all, that's why when Kurush came for a talk, that was, I wish everybody had come. We laughed and laughed, but it was based on actually the reality of, he talks about food waste. You know, food with 30% of food is wasted. Like in England, the eggs are measured. The tiniest eggs are 30% of the food. Nobody buys that. So, so waste is not only of one kind, waste is of um, all kinds. Yeah. Ah. Hi, Amrita. Hi. Thank you for coming.
I've been following up for many years now, and so both your artistic and theoretical impulses have been fluid, right? From feminist to feminism to transnationality, which is connected to contextual thinking that you talked about. At one level, there's Bateson's thing of patterns that connect. At another level, there's also Edward Morin that we've spoken about earlier, where he talks about spiral arguments as against modernity's linear progress. You know, and transdisciplinary is also about finding connections across isolated bodies of knowledge. So I think this very interesting transdisciplinary shift that has happened in your work. I'd also like to connect it a bit more to, because you have also been critical of Indian form Marxism. Marxism largely focused on industrial labor, right? And not really looked at the environment.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah. You know, very interesting. We used to read Pablo Neruda, you know, for his poems about the society. But now, first I thought I may have poems or my drawings and all that. You know, when you're working, you have many ideas, some material, some you reject. And we read that time in the 70s only about the class and all that, not about environment. But he wrote in 60s and that also, but because we were not conscious of that. Yeah, even then. So we were reading a kind of, you know, what Marxism brought. But then it was good that how we all branched off, and then we saw feminism coming, and then ecofeminism, and all. It's not that you need a theory to cling on to, but it assures your own. I personally feel it assures me कि हाँ दूसरे लोग भी ऐसे सोच रहे हैं. You know, I'm not the only isolated ones and all. As it is, we hardly have any kind of theoretical discourse between us, you know, artists and all. But I grew up with all these people from the academics, so, and they never trusted us with, when we made posters, they would give us slogans. तो मैं बोलती थी कि भाई स्लोगन चाहिए ही नहीं, हमारी ड्राइंग है वहाँ, ड्राइंग को बोलने दो. जैसे नहीं स्लोगन चाहिए. यू सी, तो इनका राज था, हम तो वर्कर्स थे. सो वो आज भी हैं हम लोग, एंड they still have a, you know, chip on their shoulder that ये कहाँ से आ गया, ये कैसे बोल सकते हैं इसके बारे में, इनको environment का क्या पता, you know. So which is true when it comes to writing books and all that, you know. But anyway, Proyom was we got a premise, you know, which I am very thankful, because I was in Prayom, in the study circle, that, you know, one understood about the criticality of, you know, the critic. Yeah. It started with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely to listen to.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, all of you. And
Start with, you have told us about your life as an artist. It's so diverse.
I miss out also on many things in the cities, but but, but I've not given. You know, I've never taken a position of pretending. I'm like this in Bastar. I'm like this here. I've never pretended to be.
Yeah.
And I've never. Yeah. So I don't. which during Marxist days we used to, when we went to slums, we bal bandh ke, I remember once we used to see each other in slums and all. One day I saw that friend with hair open at Linking Road, and I said, "Arey, isko kya ho gaya?" How she's, so you imagine the person's personality to be, we refused ourselves our identities and all, but that's not the way things work. In artist capacity I work, I don't claim to be an anthropologist. But now fortunately, art field has broadened, there's no longer a specialist in one thing, we can inform ourselves through various, we can inform ourselves, yeah, yeah. And don't claim to be, we are anthropologists or historians or social scientists, but it's all interrelated.